Welcome back. This is the Now Morning Show. We're here in Trinidad and Tobago, but good morning to you wherever you are in the world. And speaking about being in the world, this morning we head across to the United States of America. We head to New York. It's COVID around the world. And joining us today is Sonya Frontin, Quarantine Public Health Officer, CDC Public Health, JFK. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me. How are you?
I am doing well, but I need to ask, how are you?
I'm doing well given the circumstances, but happy to be here and doing well.
Wonderful. So explain to us exactly what you do.
So, by training, I'm a communicable disease epidemiologist, which is someone who studies disease patterns and why they happen and the causes, and tries to find ways to decrease risk or to prevent diseases being spread in a community.
Hmm.
Within my capacity now as a quarantine public health officer with the CDC, I work within the CDC structure at JFK. Well, I'm stationed at the JFK International Airport out of the New York quarantine station. There are quarantine stations throughout different airports, major airports in the United States.
Hmm.
And our role there, we're stationed there 24/7, more or less. We've been there before the pandemic. We've just been ramped up with work. But what we are doing now is responding to passenger illnesses and identifying illnesses as they're coming off the flight. We're doing enhanced screening for COVID-19. So when folks are coming directly off the flight, we're doing temperature checks, we're doing public health assessments. And if we find that someone is ill or meets the criteria or has a significant exposure, we then try and link them to care or link them to some kind of further action and put other actions in place to make sure that we're decreasing the possible spread of disease should this be something that is infectious and may have been exposed to other passengers either in flight or in the airport.
Hmm. And what is it like working on the front line? Because you're definitely out there on the front line in the US, where, with the largest number of cases right now.
Yes. So we started this back in January. Didn't know too much of what was going on back then. We just knew it was an outbreak of pneumonia in Wuhan, China. And it's picked up pretty fast from there. And unfortunately, New York City did become the epicenter and continues to be the epicenter of
Yeah.
COVID-19. So that is what we've been dealing with. Unfortunately, we've had a lot of people become ill just working at the airports, and now we're seeing massive community spread within New York City.
Hmm.
At first, we were just looking at travelers that were incoming, but now it is certified mass spread within New York State and New York City.
Yeah. So, Sonia, what makes you get up each day, put yourself at risk to do what you're doing?
Mhm. For me, I think about my family. When I first actually started working on COVID, I actually thought about Trinidad and Tobago and the implications of something this serious getting to Trinidad and Tobago. And those are the things that really, really drove me. My background is in global health and international health. I like to think of things on a more global perspective. How does this affect other countries that have different resources and different access to things? So those are the types of things that drive me. I guess because of the passion that I have for the work that I do, fear is not something that I really entertain.
Hmm.
And I'm passionate about my job. I love what I do, and I'm confident in what I do. So there's no room for fear, and I feel good about what I do. And that also ties into having a strong social structure supporting you. My family has been amazing throughout this. I do have an 8-year old. They've helped me immensely, my parents. And my family back in Trinidad, they're checking in on me every day. My friends, and my team at work, they are absolutely amazing.
Yeah. But speaking about your team at work, how have your colleagues been coping? I'd imagine it would be very overwhelming what's happening, especially in the US.
So I think we all have similar ways of coping. I think at this point we probably spend more time at work than we do at home, unfortunately. So we're all very, very close. We see each other from day to day, and the days kind of merge into each other, and we kind of lose track of time. So we're kind of like a little bit of small family at this point.
Yeah.
So we share ideas. I think being in the field of public health, there's always this kind of mindset of this kind of holistic way of coping and health that we look at. So self-care is very important, and that looks different in many different ways. We look at um, physical health, mental health, emotional health. We were making sure that we're taking time to do that. So we try and we talk a lot, you know. So if we do have concerns, or you know, just things that we are experiencing that we want to talk amongst ourselves, that helps a lot to kind of just talk at this point. Because of the strict quarantine orders, for all of us, the only social interaction that we have outside of our homes are with each other at work. So we are a really strong support system with each other. And
Mm.
with coping, we try and do a lot of exercise for the most part. I think a lot of us do a lot of exercise at home, try and do yoga in the office when we can. So far we keep up each other's morale. We support each other. We're a strong team, and I think it works very well for us and helps us kind of cope and keep chugging along. We also have really strong leadership that checks in on us and make sure that we have everything that we need. And they're very flexible, very supportive, because they understand that this is a scary time. And not only are we doing this work on the front line, but we also have families that we have to come to at home to every day. So
Yeah.
I would say that's how coping is going. And I think we're doing quite well because we've been doing this since January, and now we're heading towards the end of May. So, you know, I'm proud of us.
Okay, and we're proud of you too. And Sonia, before I let you go, I have one more question that I wanted to ask you, but I'm going to segue a little bit because I'm sure there's some people who are looking on and saying, we want to know more about Sonya Frontin. Who is she? Where did she grow up? What school did she go to in Trinidad and Tobago before heading to the U.S.?
Absolutely. So I actually was born in the US. I moved to Trinidad when I was 5, and I grew up there till I was about 16 or 17. So my formative years were in Trinidad and
But I love
Tobago,
that
and
you
I
still have
visit
the
pretty
accent.
much every year since then. I went to St. Joseph's Convent, St. Joseph. So
Right.
hi to anyone that's watching. Very close with all of my sisters and my classmates from back then. So I grew up in Trinidad, spent time in Belmont, lived in Trin City. So I consider myself more Trinidadian than American because I'm in Trinidad most of the time. So yeah, so that's my background. I did primary school and secondary school in Trinidad, and then by the time I moved to the States, I went to college, and I went to Spelman College. So, and that's in Atlanta, Georgia. So, um, loved growing up in Trinidad, loved returning. I have an 8 year old. I make sure she comes back every year. So she's very well acquainted with what it is to be a Trinidadian. She's probably more Trini than me.
Well, I love the fact that you still have your Trinidad and Tobago accent, yeah? All right, so Trinidad and Tobago has not been as heavily hit as other countries, but in no way can we say that this is over. What message do you have for the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago as we begin to relax measures?
So I think, you know, kudos to Trinidad and Tobago because, from the very beginning of this, I've checked what's been going on in the United States, throughout the world, and Trinidad and Tobago. That's always been what I've been doing. I always wanted to keep a pulse check of what's going on back home. And now that things are getting a little bit relaxed, there are some key points that are imperative. People cannot get complacent. They cannot um, get too relaxed. You have to remain vigilant. This is something that it's a global pandemic. It's something that's going to affect us for years and years to come. So we have to be mindful that this is not something that's going away anytime soon. And we need to stay on top of that. So, with that being said, in true epidemiologist forms, I have my several tips. The main one being, and this is for any disease, the best preventative measure you can do is washing your hands. Soap and water does the job every single time. You want to make sure that you're washing your hands back, front, in between your fingers, underneath your fingernails, and you want to make sure that you're doing that for at least 20 seconds. You also want to make sure that you are sanitizing and disinfecting highly touched surfaces and items throughout the day because you don't want to be, getting that stuff on your hands and on your being and infecting yourself inadvertently. The other thing is that if you are sick, you should stay home and isolate yourself. Do not just head straight to the hospital. It's best practice that you call in advance, let them know that you are ill, let them know what your symptoms are, and let them advise you on the best way that you can come in and get care without exposing other people. We live in a community, and there should be some type of obligation to make sure that we're not getting other people ill. Making sure that we're looking out for the most vulnerable people in our population. They should be staying at home as much as possible. You want to avoid crowds. You want to make sure that we're not being out and about unless it's absolutely necessary. No non-essential travel is necessary at this point. Trinidad is doing great. And probably going anywhere else at this point throughout the world, you're putting yourself at a higher risk.
Yeah.
So that is something to be considered once things start opening up. And the other thing I would think about is, I said hand washing,
Yeah.
just being very self-aware on yourself and the information that's out there, making sure that you are staying on top of everything that's going on, making sure that if you will have to go out in public, that people need to get out, they need to get fresh air, but making sure that you're practicing good social distancing, which is about 6 feet.
All
And
right.
making sure that you're wearing a face covering in public. I know there are a lot of people that are making masks. They don't have to be fancy, but you do want to protect yourself and give yourself an extra layer so that, this thing is in the air. You don't want to you want to reduce as much as possible the um, the access that this
Yeah.
virus has to you and you acquiring it. So
Yeah.
those are some of the main things I would say that Trinidadians and Tobagonians could actually continue to do once measures are relaxed, and just be mindful that we might want to go out and party and see our friends, but we need to kind of ease into that. Group activities and large group gatherings are just not a good idea at this
Not a good
time.
idea right
And
now.
it is important to stay
Yeah.
super vigilant and to practice
Yeah.
the
All right,
tips that I just
Sonia.
mentioned, and
Sonia, I
many, many
wanna.
others. But I think those are like the
Yeah.
real hallmark, down to basic things that you can do to keep yourself and your family safe. And just to kind of close off, just, we're all in this together. Everyone has their role to play. We are part of something much bigger. We are part of a community. And, to be kind and take care of each other. So
Yeah.
just think, your actions affect your families, they affect your nation. And, you don't want to be irresponsible and take stuff home to someone who might be immunocompromised or vulnerable, or
Mm-hmm.
someone who's healthy and out there when you don't have to.
All right, Sonia. Thank you so much, Sonia Frontin, for that useful information and for spending the time with us this morning. And keep up doing the work. Keep on doing the good work that you're doing. That was Sonia Frontin, Quarantine Public Health Officer, CDC, Public Health, JFK, New York City.